Welcome to the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Hope you're having a wonderful start to your weekend from wherever you are. It's a Friday. Feels like it was going to take forever to get to the end of the week. Imagine how the players feel. 6 straight practices, not like the old days, but it's that point where it starts to feel like a grind. And they had a great week of practice with 3 straight days in pads, the maximum allowed according to the CBA. And that third practice in pads, that was special. If you talk to the players, they feel like it really made a difference, showed where this team is heading. We talked to a couple of young players this week, too, that are going to play an integral role. The Broncos are going to return to the playoffs, maybe even win a division, win a playoff game. And that's young cornerback Riley Moss entering what should be his second year as a starter. And, of course, Marvin Mims in his third year. He was a breakout star the last month of the season. What were those 2 players saying about practice, about their upcoming roles? And Mims delivered the quote of the week. You got to hear that. It's all coming up after the break. Have you been hurt in a car wreck or injured at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hoggatt Injury Law a call. Their motto with us, it's personal. That's because it is. I've known Darby Hoggatt for years. We became good friends. Many of Darby's clients become his good friend. You don't even have to pay Darby up front. If your case goes as planned, Darby will be the one writing checks to you. Again, if you've been injured in a car wreck or hurt at work, give Darby a call. His team's at 1-833-HOGGATT or visit the website at hoggattlaw.com. And welcome to our new sponsor, Theodore Shih. Listen, when you face curveballs and you face challenges in a family setting, divorce, legal separation, child support, alimony, custody, you need a lawyer who understands human dynamics, the courtroom, and is willing to fight for your rights. You need Theodore Shih, or Ted Shih. A graduate of Cal Berkeley Law School, Ted brings 40 years of courtroom experience and 20 years of family law experience to your corner. Ted has been a social worker, a police detective, but first and foremost, a trial lawyer. He has tried cases across the country and the state. He has taught young lawyers across the country the ins and outs of the courtroom for the National Institute of Trial Advocacy. Martindale-Hubbell ranks Ted among the top lawyers in the country. Want an expert to navigate your family challenge? Call Ted. Ted's passion is putting you first. He will work to settle your case if possible, but he's not afraid to go toe-to-toe in a trial to protect your interests. So here's the info you need. Ted can be reached at theoshih@aol.com. That's Theo, like Theo, SHIH @AOL.com, or give him a call, 303-475-2981. That number again, 303-475-2981. And I love this. Ted promises to respond to your concerns within 24 hours, 365 days a year. Welcome, Ted, to the program. Thanks so much for your support. Well, Broncos, this is Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Hope you're reading my columns, writing a lot about the Broncos this week. Had a feature story and feature column, if you want, Ini Onwuzurike. I will have an interview with him next week that we will air, a sit-down interview about his second chance with the Broncos after serving a year-long suspension for gambling. He missed the entire 2023 season, and he looks different, folks. He came back last year. He's definitely been a guy that's popped early in camp. He's a bubble guy. He's bubbly, as they say, on the roster. He's going to have a strong preseason to make it. But Onwuzurike understands, appreciates the faith Sean Payton and even Greg Penner, who I talked to, showed in him. George Payton have given him the second chance. And so far in camp, looks like he's making the most of it. And that's how this team has really jumped from a team that couldn't get a winning record, a team that couldn't make the playoffs, to one now that is viewed as a contender. And nationally, everyone that comes through nationally views the Broncos now as a contender. How has that happened? It's because of the young players. Credit to Sean Payton, George Payton, for not only drafting well, but developing players well. We talk about this with the Rockies, like they're a draft and development organization that doesn't draft or develop well. And they're loyal to incompetence, but that's a different podcast. When you are the Broncos, and you were missing first-round picks because of the first Russell Wilson trade, you're missing a first-round pick because you had to acquire Sean Payton to be your coach. When you do draft, Not only you have to get the right guys, you got to develop them. And what I can appreciate about Sean Payton, he's one of the few coaches remaining that has a really keen eye for personnel and the draft. And he has a vision for players, selecting guys, what they're going to be in first year, second year, third year. Sometimes it's a little slower than we would like, especially offensively with Mims. With Judy a couple of years ago, it was trying to understand why isn't Mims getting more playing time? But Mims burst at the end of last season. And Riley Moss, after an uneven rookie year where he dealt with kind of like a hernia-type surgery, we've got him off to a slow start. Last year, he won the job at camp opposite Pat Surtain, and all he did was show that he was a legit corner. For roughly about 12, 13 weeks, they were a top 5 corner duo, Pat Surtain and Riley Moss, and then unfortunately Moss hurt his knee, and he wasn't the same and picked the wrong game to come back in a night game against the Bengals, and Joe Burrow, who was just absolutely oven mitts required hot at that point in the season, and T. Higgins, the two of them put on a clinic against Moss. But that's cornerback. If you don't think a cornerback's been torched, then I would say that you haven't watched the NFL. It's an offensive-friendly league, and cornerbacks are designed to get beat. So you got to have amnesia, you got to have confidence, you got to be able to play physical without getting penalized. And that's where I want to start here with Moss. Moss, when you play opposite of Pat Surtain, holy hell, you better bring it. You better bring it. And we've seen that from him in camp because, remember, they drafted Jahdae Barron. And there was some speculation nationally, not so much locally, that Barron could start outside over Moss. I haven't seen any of that. I see a guy in Barron that's certainly going to threaten to play in the nickel, either over Jaquan McMillan, or they be used to different times, or they're both used in the dime. But I haven't seen, as of yet, Barron threaten to unseat Moss at outside corner opposite Surtain. And so you ask, well, why do they take Barron? Well, here's the reason you do this. When you look at and James Palmer, and I'm going to get him on the podcast soon, works for Bleacher Report, former NFL Network reporter. He and I were talking at camp this week, and James travels around the country still getting to camps. And one of the things he brought up that I've observed as well is just the multiplicity of teams and the versatility of secondaries. How no one wants to just pigeonhole guys anymore. You want guys that can play inside. You want guys that can play outside, and you want sometimes a corner that can fall back and look like a safety if possible. I mean, that's not easy because of the size element, but you saw it with the Eagles and Vic Fangio and their secondary, just how versatile they can be, and moving him in and out. And I think they're going to have him playing in like some safety type formations. And that's like you see, like with Jahdae Barron, can they move him around the field? And a guy like Riley Moss has the capability of going inside, outside. And why does that matter? Well, when you have as Moss calls it, the DPOY, the Defensive Player of the Year, the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, in Pat Surtain, you want him to trail top receivers a lot of times. Whether that was Devontae Adams back in the day, whether that's Jamar Chase, you start the first few games of the season, he'll get Michael Pittman that second game against the Colts. You want Surtain to be able to trail. And at times last year, then because it came up this week, and it's a little bit of a tangent, how in the hell is Surtain not a 99 ranking on Madden as the Defensive Player of the Year? And I had a former player sent to me who loves Surtain's game, but he said, listen, he gave up 7 first downs and multiple first downs on penalties. And that's probably what knocked him down from a 99. And that did happen, especially early in the season. I think like 3 of those were in one game, if I remember, like the Steelers game. But again, that's going to happen at corner. But to allow Surtain to move around and trail a top receiver, it requires versatility from the rest of your secondary. And when you can trust a Moss to go inside, outside, you can trust a Jahdae Barron to maybe stay inside and McMillan floats out, and then you've still got help on the backside from Talanoa Hufanga, Brandon Jones. Well, that's when you start talking about one of the best secondaries in the NFL. Because when you can do that, now Surtain can trail and follow a guy around and put a do not disturb sign on that part of the field or certainly that player for long stretches at a time. We saw Surtain do it. If you ever want to watch what it looks like when he demoralizes a great receiver, go watch the second half of the Bucs game against Mike Evans. By the end of that game, Evans, and I love Evans, he's a Hall of Famer. He had enough of Surtain. I mean, those last few routes, he's like, I'm done with this guy. I mean, because Mayfield he wasn't getting a time, but Mayfield couldn't even glance in his direction because there's no opening. And that's what Surtain can do. But he can't do it completely alone as a corner. You need help from the rest of the secondary. So when you're able to move those parts around and have that kind of versatility, what does it do? It allows you to blitz. It allows you to play downhill. It allows you, we're going to play man on the backside. We're going to bring a linebacker blitz. We're going to play, with Pat, take this guy out. We're going to send a corner blitz. Like, that's what Pat Surtain does. And we saw when he was out a game, what was that Chargers game? It was like their defense forgot how to play for a quarter and a half because he makes the pieces fit. And Moss, in some ways, makes the pieces fit too, because the guy opposite Surtain, you're going to get action. You're going to get all the smoke. You're going to get more smoke than the Marlboro Man. So I want you to hear from Riley Moss about the challenge of playing opposite of Surtain, that challenge of, that secondary, what he's seen from Jahdae Barron, some of those things. What is his head? Where's his head out? And he's gained some good weight. I think he said he's gained about 7 pounds of muscle. Body fat really hasn't changed. He looks great. He looks healthy. He gained the weight for the physicality at the top of the ball. And he sees that every day from Courtland Sutton. So let's hear from Riley Moss about being opposite of Surtain, getting, bigger, playing against Sutton, and the addition of Jahdae Barron, what it can mean for this secondary. Here's Riley.
This is our, third day with full pads, and you can tell that guys are starting to get used to the pads. We're flying around, the speed is increasing, and it's good for us. We're getting better through that.
How do you feel about just the depth of the secondary? I mean, it was strong last year, and now you've added Fonda and then Barron as well.
Yeah, it's good to have depth, especially at that position, and it's making us better. Having someone behind you and learning from them and being able to teach them things as well, I think is beneficial for everyone, from the last guy in the room to Pat Surtain. So,
what's your analysis specifically of Jahdae coming in as a rookie? That a lot of different players have said that he seems like he's already really well into his way. It's kind of like that already.
Yeah. He's smart. He's came in, in the training room in terms of like recovery stuff. He knows what to do. He's gotten a routine, which is kind of the biggest learning curve. Obviously, when you come into the NFL, is you have so much time. How are you going to spend that time? And he's spent that time well, I think, rehabbing and stuff like that, and also just picking up the defense. I think, he's smart and he understands, where his help is at, and that's nice too, having him out there. You can trust him, and it helps all of us.
When you studied your film from last year, what did you take from it that you wanted to focus on and improve heading into this?
Yeah, I think, the point of attack, when the ball's up in the air, some of those 50-50 balls, being stronger, not getting pushed off. And that was a big thing for me this offseason was, getting bigger, getting stronger, being able to, push against the receiver and be a little bit more physical.
Playing opposite of Pat's not for the weak because you're going to get targeted. What did you learn from that, and do you still expect that again this year?
Yeah, it's going to be, as long as I'm across from, DPOY, it's going to be like that. And I love the challenge. It makes it fun. It makes it fun to come into work knowing, it's on me. I'm going to be on an island, and what can I do? And that's what I think makes this game so beautiful and why I love the position that I'm in.
We talked a lot about versatility, with the secondary. You guys move around in a bunch of different spots. For you individually, do you feel like there are things that you can do as far as playing inside, outside, that you maybe couldn't do a couple years ago or last year? How is your versatility?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just patience and trusting my speed. Because I came from Iowa and we played a good amount of zone and we taught man a little bit differently. And so when I got here, I learned a lot from Pat in terms of staying square at the line, being physical at the line, being patient, and I've grown a lot in that aspect.
Getting bigger, stronger, how much weight did you add?
So I was sitting at the end of the season. I was like 193, 194. Weighed in first day of camp at 200 pounds. So I've put on some good muscle. Only put on body fat percentage. I only put on like 0.4% body fat. So it was good.
With pads on the last 3 days, what sort of impact do you feel that having in the game?
Yeah, I think, especially going against Court, Court's a strong receiver at the top. He likes to kind of push off, and, they're not going to call that. It's an offensive game, right? So you got to be able to play into him and play strong, and that's been the best work that I've gotten, especially in one-on-ones, is against Court and going against the top of the route.
Hope you enjoyed that. Again, you wonder sometimes with a young player coming off a knee injury, is he going to be threatened with a Jahdae Barron? I'm sure he wasn't thrilled with the pick. A cornerback in the first round when everyone, myself included, had him taking a running back, tight end, an offensive player, and they take a corner. I mean, obviously they're trying to upgrade. Sean Payton doesn't take guys for his health. I mean, he sees Barron as a guy that's going to play. And he goes out of his way, Payton, to praise Barron's intelligence, his football IQ. Peyton loves smart football players. It tells you he's going to be on the field. The issue is where. But Moss has shown up in camp with the old, when your high school coach tells you and you want to play varsity, bigger, stronger, faster. He looks a little thicker. He looks a little stronger. And he competes, man. The thing I love about Moss is playing in a system at Iowa where he had to tackle, and he got exposed a couple times in big games. It calloused him and hardened him, but he's never lost that edge, man. He's got that edge to him. He's got a confidence when you talk to him that I absolutely love. He's a former star track athlete. He's competed in different venues in his entire life. And he's a guy like you, if you punch, man, he is punching back. And I love that about him. Early in camp, we're seeing an even better version of the Moss we saw last year early in the season. And that's a good sign because he, as he said there, he's going to get targeted. He's got to be ready for it. But they're not going to win with defensive pressure. They're not going to win with just sacks. They're probably going to win with some takeaways. They're going to have more this year. But they need a more explosive offense. Who is the number 2 behind Cortland Sutton? Who is that guy? Early in camp, it's one of the things that it bears watching. It's why, myself included, why didn't they go get another receiver? You got Keenan Allen out there. I'm not crazy about Keenan Allen. It's not the guy. He's hurt all the time. The Broncos have gotten away from that type of player, understandably so, and I think it's a smart move because nothing hurts your season more than counting on guys who are not available. It just makes it impossible to move forward when a guy's out every other week. He misses 4 weeks of hamstring, comes back, isn't the same, finally gets healthy, gets hurt again. That stop-start thing, it really screws with continuity of an offense. So Allen, I think eventually he signs somewhere. I don't see it with the Broncos, but they don't have a clear number 2 right now. I thought it was going to be Everyday Vele. And I said that. I wrote that in a column. During OTAs, he was absolutely popping, folks. Jack Harlow popping, right? I mean, you're like, you can't take your eyes off this guy on slants, and he was just a first-down machine last year for an older rookie, certainly a 27-year-old rookie. But he missed mandatory minicamp. And Sean Payton said at the time then, no big deal. It's no big deal. He'll be back. And he was. I think he had something done with his knee. He's got a sleeve on his right knee. And I'll be honest, he has not looked the same in training camp. He has not looked like the player he was last year. I think he's recovering from that, and he had a day off earlier this week. That's probably a maintenance day. Again, there has not been a lot of clarity in what he's going through. It feels like, this is speculation on my part, he had some kind of scope, and he's coming back from it, and he's just not healthy. And we saw this with Moss last year. You get it done, you heal. I can't remember if Moss had a scope, but when he came back, he just wasn't himself. That's the problem with the NFL, is the margin for error is just razor thin. And just there's one thing to be healthy, it's another thing to be effective. So you can say, I feel right, I'm cleared by the doctors, but your strength isn't what it was. And sometimes it's just the confidence. You don't trust it. And in the NFL, there's just no way to be, unless you're, the Aaron Donalds and, that type of player that's, a Mahomes or Josh, that's better than everyone else, that when you're hurt and you come back, if you lose some confidence or lose a little bit of strength, it shows up if you're not that dude. And with Vele, we haven't seen him pop yet in camp. It's early. It's early, but I'm just letting you know. I'll get that fantasy question because I put it out there. I thought he's going to have a big season as the number 2. Not seeing that right now. The guy that is popping early in camp is Troy Franklin. He does look like he's bigger, stronger, faster. He changed his number to 11. He looks more comfortable, if that makes sense. Even Bo Nix said he looks right in that jersey. And he's winning at the line of scrimmage more consistently. He's just clearly more comfortable in the playbook. And again, I'm going to say it. Johnny Morton wore out Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims last year to the point where I just thought it was counterproductive. I get coaches jumping a guy, getting on your ass. I do. I grew up in an environment of being coached hard at times. I've been a coach. I'm not a yeller screamer that way. I'll make a point once in a while, but I'm not going to yell at you. I just think the more you yell, the less you coach. And at some point, especially the modern athlete, they tune you out. That work back in the 80s, with 70s, the Bear Bryants, the Bob Knights of the world. You don't see a lot of coaches like that anymore. Because coaches and the relationship and dynamic and even the power structure of that has changed, where kids have more power because they have more information. Back when I was playing, and some of you all listen to the podcast, it was like, you're doing this because I told you to do it. Now kids have gotten so smart, whether through playing video games or the ability to YouTube or Google something, they want to know why. I was talking to Dave Logan about this the other day because he's the greatest high school coach in the history of our state. He agreed with me. It's just like, you got to know why. Kids want to know why they're doing stuff. Why are we doing this drill? You don't have to stop everything, but they're smarter because they have more information at their fingertips. So when you're constantly yelling at guys when they're at this age, in this term of where we are in modern sports, guys don't take it. Oh, he loves me. It's tough love. They take it like, really? Just tell me what you want. Don't scream at me. And so I thought it stunted the growth of Mims and Franklin last year. Morton's now in Detroit. He's gone. Not surprisingly, Mims and Franklin are having better camps. And I'm not blaming Johnny Morton for everything. I'm just saying his coaching style with those two players did not work, in my opinion. They may say, well, that's what got Mims to the finish line. I would disagree. I think Mims got Mims to the finish line last year because of his talent and them recognizing and putting him in better positions to succeed. But who's going to be that number 2? Early in camp, again, Troy Franklin's shown some flashes. Pat Bryant's shown a little bit here and there where you like what you see. Vele, again, he's kind of behind right now because I don't think he's healthy. And I think he's trying to get his confidence back for whatever he went through. I don't know exactly. I'm just telling you, he has a sleeve on his knee and he doesn't look right. Mims does look right. Mims is playing fast. He's playing in a way that we saw that was similar last year, where they can use him in multiple ways in the backfield as the deep threat. He's the one guy who can take a top off the defense. And he plays fast in pads. I think Franklin might be as fast as Mims. I don't know what their 40 times are, how they match up. But Mims has the ability to play fast in pads. And there's a talent to that, folks, because some guys put pads on, they don't look the same. They lose a tick. They just, whatever reason, they're not comfortable with it. Mims is. And what I've seen from Mims is growth. I see a guy that when he's talking, you're talking about a guy who's been all pro his first 2 years as a returner. He has no interest in giving that up. He loves doing it. And they are responding to Darren Rizzi. This guy gets after it. He's all about speed, fast, violent. He loves Marvin Mims and sees him as the weapon that he is. So they're not looking to phase Mims out. It'll be interesting to see if Mims becomes a true number 2, if they will look to reduce some of that workload. But right now, it'd be crazy to, because he's too valuable as a punt and kick returner to take him out of the game that way. He's just a weapon. He's a walking first down at times on punt returns specifically. And the field position game, in one-score games, Mims is a huge advantage to that. But can Bo Nix start gaining chemistry with a Mims like he has with a Sutton? You're seeing better chemistry with Franklin. Can we continue to see it with Nix and Mims? And I don't know what it's going to look like. It might be Mims 4 catches for 92 yards. Next week it's 2 for 22, and then 1 week it's 3 for 105. That's the kind of player he is. but I think you got to be thinking in terms of getting Mims 5 to 8 touches a game, whether that's 3 in the backfield and 5 targets. He's too explosive not to take advantage of his, and he gives defense headaches. So let's listen to Marvin Mims. And also, I cannot believe he said this on the podium. His second bite in there. Malcolm Roach is my guy. You guys know that. You can Google the pod here and pick up the old pod of Malcolm Roach. Malcolm Roach is one of my favorite interviews, so I'm biased. But he never stops talking. He's funny. He's loud. He's a soundtrack. And when they've had talk at practice, and they got chippy this week on that 3rd straight day in pads, Mims is right in the middle of it. He's the DJ. He's the soundtrack. Mims had enough. So listen to this soundbite about Mims talking football, but also talking about, he said what about Marvin Roach? Here's Marvin Mims.
Yeah, it's cool. It's different. I enjoy it, but I do expect to see a little bit of it this year upcoming, but we'll see how that plays out. But it's cool. Getting hit's cool, but by a linebacker and stuff, it's not the best sometimes, but I'll do it.
How do you feel about kind of the competition to be the 2 receiver or 3 or what have you? I mean, you got a lot of guys competing to be one of the guys behind Corbin. How do you feel about the competition on this guy?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing. You look at all the guys in our room and how we've been playing at camp. I think for the most part, everyone's looked good. There's not really many negatives to say, and we're going against our defense, who's probably going to be the best defense going into the season, and it's huge for us. So just the depth of our receiver room is something that isn't talked about enough, and I think it's a really strong thing for us going into the season.
Marvin, speaking of that defense, chirping today, from that side of the ball, kind of get you guys going on the out.
Yeah, it's just Malcolm Roach. I sit next to him in the locker room. The guy doesn't shut up. He's talking crap to receivers. It's like, dude, you're a fat guy. Go worry about that. Leave me alone. But no, we're always going back and forth. But with him, it's just a whole nother deal.
You guys kind of encounter with JK though a little bit. Just what have you seen from him coming in, especially vocally and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's cool. Especially big, strong, physical guy, and we hung out a little bit over the offseason just to get to know him. I think that's the coolest thing, is get to know these guys and the different places they've been, different stories they have. And I think it's the coolest part about the NFL is just hearing different stories and different coaches and areas and stuff. So I think it's pretty cool. But having him here and just as a leader, as a vet guy, I think it helps a lot.
When they adjusted kickoff rules last year, initially it was thought, okay, we're going to get a lot more kick returns. Didn't end up quite being that way last year. Do you feel like you guys are going to have more opportunity now doing different things in our Coach Rizzi to actually get some returns?
Yeah, for sure. At the end of the day, it's up to the kickoff team. But with me back there and whoever's going to be out there next to me, they have to kick it at the touchback. It goes out to the 35, and most teams don't want to give the offense the ball at the 35, and especially give Bo Nix the ball at the 35. That can be trouble. So should be a huge, major thing for us this year, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm like the rest of you folks. I couldn't believe he said it. This is Troy Renck from the Denver Post. You're listening to my Broncos podcast. You can find all my columns at denverpost.com/sports. Go to the columns thing. All my columns are down there, and I've done several on the Broncos already. I've got a big one coming up this Sunday that I want you to keep an eye out for. I think you will enjoy. But last week wrote about Bo Nix on Sunday through the eyes of Brian Greasy and Jake Plummer. Wrote earlier in this week about Ini Iwazurike and his second chance. And then today's column in the Post is about you got to pay Zach Allen after I talked with Derek Wolfe, who, as you all know, knows a little bit about the position. He and Mark Schlereth, both guys I trust their opinions, watch the film, watch the games, and they had some interesting things to say about Zach Allen. You got to pay him. No reason to wait. You're going to wait on Benito because he's going to let the market set with Trey Hendrickson and more specifically Micah Parsons because he can play off that. He's not going to get Parsons money, but just let that top go higher. That brings the floor up and it brings him past certain guys. So Benito would be silly to be in a rush. There's no more comp you're waiting for with Zach Allen. He's going to be between $22 and $25 million a year, probably over 4 years, and he's everything you want in the player. So I'd sign him. And that brings me to my last point. Best practice ever? What? Adam Troutman on Thursday said that the practice on Wednesday was the best practice he's been in Denver with Sean Payton in 3 years. For a number of reasons. The intensity, the execution, and the fire. guys getting after it, an understanding of a competitive spirit. It was this perfect blend of your coach, because Sean Payton, I talked to people afterward because he did not talk on the podium that day, but he was like absolutely giddy with that practice. The defense was dominant early. The offense finished strong on 3rd and long with Bo Nix. So you have a good flavor there, because the defense has been ahead of the offense the entire camp, not surprisingly, given the talent of that group and just the nature of the business, the way it works early in camp. But this was a practice where you could see a good team. It reminded when the Niners came in for joint practices years ago, 7 years ago, and they showed up with an intensity on their defensive line of defense, and they absolutely punked the Broncos, punked them. And you walked away saying, holy shit, either San Francisco is really good or the Broncos are terrible. It turned out it was both. Niners were really good and the Broncos stunk that year. But what I saw in this practice, again, you're going against your own guys too. You're able to, that competitive spirit, and that comes out in guys that care. Like they're getting after it as a group. And Roach is certainly part of that soundtrack. Letting guys have it, letting them hear it. But you see Zach Allen setting that. They're double teaming, and he's holding off double teams to let Benito get through around Bowles. You see the unselfishness of guys understanding and showing football IQ. If I can't get mine on this play, I got to do my job so somebody else can. And them that coalescing, coming together as a group where it matters that the defense, that stand, that they take it personally. But what we saw in this day was the offense did too. At one point, and this, folks, you're going to like this about him, especially if he stays healthy. J.K. Dobbins had a jump cut because the defense was playing aggressive as hell, as you can imagine. And some of these drills are set up for one side or the other to win, and one side has a clear advantage, and where they know they're not going to pass, so they overplay because they're told going in it's a running drill. But so they overplayed, and Dobbins had a jump cut, and then he got back. And so all the players, if you can visualize this, they're doing it like they're playing 11 on 11, and both the defense and offense are behind the play, across the field. And so you're walking back to you're not walking to a different sideline. In other words, you're walking back to the same spot. Dobbins delivers. Remember, he had 100 yards against the Broncos last year. He was one of the few running backs outside of Cook at the end of the year really put on a show against the Broncos defense. He has a jump cut, gets huge yards. He comes back to that line and says, this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to be if you do that. Letting guys know it, including Roach. He's pointing guys out. And Troutman said of that on the podium on Thursday, he said, J.K. Dobbins, he's got some shit to him, meaning he's not afraid to talk shit, stand up, let somebody know. And we haven't really seen that from a Broncos offensive player. A little bit of Emmanuel Sanders, who was out at practice, loved seeing him the other day. C.J. Anderson had that. But some of their best offensive players are quiet. Demaryius Thomas certainly was a more quiet player. But we haven't seen an offensive player kind of with that edge to him. And Nix has it. He doesn't curse, which I can appreciate. It's part of his faith and how he operates and how he leads. He has an edge to him in games and practice. But with Dobbins, it was very visual. Where he's like, I'm tired of this defense talking smack. And he's right there pointing out. And he's not a big dude. Not a big dude. Until that led to that soundbite you heard earlier with Mims tired of Roach, telling him to worry about the fat guys. So I asked Roach after practice. I saw him in the parking lot as I was walking out to my car. I was like, what the heck did you do at 19? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, he called you. And I said, he called you. You should worry about the big guys. I wasn't going to tell Roach, like, he called you fat. Plus, we were a few cars away. I wasn't like screaming over cars. Yeah, he's calling you fat. Your thoughts. I'll hang up and listen. But Roach is like, don't be worried about 19. Don't be worried about 19. Because there's a point where I think Roach could pick Mims up and use him as dental floss. I mean, but it was good. And it didn't. Here's the thing. It got chippy. It was testy. It was intense. But it didn't spill over into a fight. That's the mark of a good team. That's the mark of discipline. That's that culture of accountability. We are going to get after. It's like MMA fighters. You see them like just beating on each other. Afterward, for the most part, they show respect, appreciate the craft, appreciate the professionalism. They're like, it looks like gladiator warfare, but there are guardrails here and how you act and how you don't look to, into guys' career. There's still a way within the violence to act appropriately. And that's what we saw in this practice. Take it right to the edge. But nobody's doing something stupid. Nobody's throwing punches. They're just getting after it. Competitive spirit, folks. Keep an eye on that as we get through now starting into kind of a little bit of the dog days of training camp, that first game coming up next weekend. Keep an eye on the competitive spirit, how guys support one another. Are they cheering on their teammates when they're watching from the sidelines? What does that look like? Because that's the sign of a team taking ownership, a team with good culture, with accountability, and they're unselfish. And when you get all those combinations where a guy is playing for his teammate and playing for the guy next to him, that's when special things can happen. And that team definitely has that vibe early in camp. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. I could not do this show if it were not for the support of my A1 from day one, Darby Hoggatt of Hoggatt Injury Law, and Ted Shih, the family law practice. Again, he's new to the program. If you need something involving a family issue, that number again for Ted's 303-475-2981. I can't thank Ted enough for jumping on as a new sponsor. If I have another room for one more sponsor, if you're interested, you can reach out to me at troyerenck@gmail.com. But thanks to Ted, and obviously this podcast would never happen, and certainly would never happen on YouTube without Danny Bailey behind the screen of Mile High Sports and Nate Lundy of Mile High Sports, who, by the way the camp set up, been able to see Nate a lot more down at Downhill Brewing, where I'm able to do my do my appearances on Mile High the Sports. Usually on Tuesday, I'm down there, folks. If you want to stop by during the lunch hour, today on Friday, I will not be because I've got another project I'm working on, so it's not going to work out for me to be there today. But Nate Lundy, I could not thank him more for the support he's given. We're right in it, man. It's exciting. This Broncos team this week is showing why they have a chance to be a legitimate contender and be in position, things go right, to win the AFC West. Broncos country, I do this pod for you. Happiness, that begins with me. Go out there and have a great day.